Good morning, everyone. Today is another episode of Arks Trash, which is my podcast, which means it will be audio only. However, for my visual listeners out there, I have prepared some B-roll for you guys, so you guys have something to watch while you listen to the podcast. But before we jump into the video, if you're new to the channel, I upload NGS content daily, so if you do play this game, I would really appreciate a subscribe, as it really helps out the channel. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin the video. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Arks Trash. Today I have special guest Fresh Dynamite with me. Fresh, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, I'm Fresh Dynamite. I'm your favorite NGS catboy, and yes, I like head pets.
Alright, Fresh. You know, a lot of my audience might not know who you are because maybe they don't watch Twitch, for example, and I know that you do stream a lot on Twitch. So can you tell me a little bit about your Twitch channel, the history, and like why you transitioned into a VTuber?
Basically, I transitioned into a VTuber because I don't like to stream in front of a cam anymore. I care too much about myself, how I look like, and what expressions I make. So I was often just focusing a lot on myself instead of like talking to people or focusing on the game and all that kind of stuff. So I decided to switch it up a bit and completely redo myself as a VTuber.
Okay, fair enough. So before you know, you became a VTuber, when you were still doing IRL streams basically, what games did you play before PSO2?
I started off with Rainbow Six Siege, also in the German category. I wasn't even streaming in English. Then I switched over to Valorant, so I was mainly playing shooter games, which I enjoy playing since I'm a child. But later on I switched to Path of Exile, which is a game like Diablo 3. And yeah, I had a lot of fun there doing guides for people and min-maxing and all that kind of stuff. But I realized that I'm a really social person actually, and I like to talk to people. So NGS is just a way more fitting game for me.
So do you consider yourself a casual player or hardcore player for PSO2? What category do you put yourself in?
Well, I would put myself into the hardcore category for sure. I do play also a lot of casuals, because for me it's more about who you play with and how they are, right? Because in the end you all just want to have fun, and most of the time you have fun with the people that you enjoy your time with.
You know, I'm gonna put you a little bit in a hard spot. You just said that PSO2 seems to be like a more casual game, you know, very relaxed, very chill, but you yourself are a hardcore player. So what exactly in PSO2 hooked you? You know, it's a casual game, but you're a hardcore player, so what is it about PSO2 that interests you to play it?
I also liked always playing MMOs, and every other MMO feels very static in its fighting style, and PSO feels more like a mix-up out of an MMO and Souls game. So it's a more active gameplay, which leads to the game having a higher skill ceiling, so you can be more invested into your class and get more out of your class the more you play, as well as how the bosses are function in the game. You can learn a lot from the bosses and how to react to them depending on what class you play. So that what makes me try harder in the game, so I get better against certain types of bosses or enemies and content that is available right now.
So to summarize, basically you're looking for hard solo type of content that you like to challenge yourself to seek perfection. Is that correct?
No, I actually like group content more. So for me it's more like challenging content in a group. I also do solo stuff, but I only can do solo stuff so much before it gets too tedious for me, since I enjoy having an experience with a group of people more.
Okay, so I want to ask you, with since you really enjoy group content, do you play with the same group of people? Do you have like someone on your friends list or your alliance list or group chat where it's like, okay, these are the group of people that I like to play with when I'm doing Dark Falls rank 2 or if I'm doing Purple Triggers? Or do you just randomly try to get people? How does it work?
It depends on the day. Sometimes I have like those certain types of people where I know, okay, I can do some fast, easy runs and I don't have to like really try hard to clear content. And then other days I feel like, okay, I want to play with anyone and I don't really mind playing with anyone. So it depends on the day. Basically, I also, when people ask me to help out, I'm always there to help out as well. So if anyone wants to be introduced into Purpose or Dark Falls, I'm also there to help the people and explain them how certain stuff works. And yeah, that's basically it.
So, you know, we're going to transition over to the next question, which I hear you say a lot on your stream, and that is ship 3 is best ship. So could you explain that? What do you mean by that?
First of all, ship 3 is the best ship. Second of all, ship 3 is the pretty much only ship I play on. I also tried ship 4, which have like a lot of nice people, especially people from the community of Phantom Yosha. And what I can say about ship 3 is we have a lot of nice people. People talk often open in the area chat about stuff because they don't mind if other people just turn in and then tell their own stuff about different things. And yeah, it's very a chill atmosphere because there's also nobody really that makes stress or complains about stuff a lot. That's why I'm saying ship 3 is the best ship, basically, because I feel like you have the best experience with the people that are on there.
So I have to ask you, because at the end of this month we're gonna have a wave of PlayStation players. They're gonna be able to download NGS, PSO2, and finally play the game, and they're gonna need to make that difficult decision on what ship should they play on. For those who don't know what a ship is, it's pretty much a server. So you pick a ship, there's a total of 4 different ships, and once you pick it, you're locked into that ship or that server. You can transfer servers if you want, however, it will cost real money, which is why a lot of people always ask, oh, what ship should I transfer to, or what ship should I make my main character on? And so, what does ship 3 have to offer to new players?
Well, first of all, because ship 3 is the best ship, we actually have a lot of individuals that really care about new players and help new players out. I by myself started the game as a more casual player, and later down the line I just asked random questions in the chat, and pretty much everyone in the lobby tried to help me out with the questions that I had. The community that I have as well. So for the people who don't know, I'm having a farming Discord on ship 3. We also talked about it, and we're gonna have like a section on our Discord for new players, and we will also do in-game group chat for new players to join, so they can have questions or can ask for help or other stuff. So we try our best to get every new player a good place, and we also try to get players in alliances that they fit in. For example, I know players that are preferring to have alliances in their own language. So if we have, for example, Brazilian players, I know a place where Brazilian players can go. When we have French people, I know where French people can go, and so on and so forward. So we have a lot of variety as well on our ship, where we can put new players in where they can feel at home, basically.
From a new player's perspective, I'd have to ask you, what type of player do you think would fit best in ship 3? And what type of player do you think would not fit very well on ship 3?
So every alliance in our ship is pretty much very casual orientated. We have like 1-2 alliances that do also the hardcore grind and the hardcore stuff. But even those alliances are more in the direction of, hey, when you have some stuff IRL, or when you want to take stuff more chill, it's all okay. There's like no pressure. And when you're someone that always wants to push really hard and wants to be like super serious, then you're probably not the right person on the ship.
Okay. I'm very surprised by your answer. It's very, very honest because I have the same vibe on Ship 3, right? The way that I see Ship 3 is everyone's super friendly, but nobody forces you to do anything, right? It's if you're a super serious player, you can play super seriously, but if you're a casual player, you can play super casually. Like nobody's gonna be like, oh, my alliance is only for casual players or only for hardcore players or whatever. Everyone's just like, yeah, you know, play however the heck you want to play. I'm not gonna force you, but you also can't force me to do anything. And so everyone kind of respects each other in that way. And I really enjoy that. I think that's really nice about Ship 3. Everyone has their own personal space, I guess, is another way to say it.
Yeah, also one thing about that to add is that since I play with a lot of different people, I also see people from the, let's say, quote-unquote top alliances are working often with each other together, and people find each other as well through that. So it's not only that the people in the alliances itself are always together, also the alliances intervene with each other and work together with each other, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, I feel like that is kind of a necessity on Ship 3 and Ship 4, because I don't know if you mentioned it, but Ship 3 is considered like a medium-sized ship, you know? It's not the smallest ship, but it's not the largest ship either. You're kind of stuck in that Goldilocks zone of you've got a medium-ish sized community, everyone kind of knows each other. You see the same alliances pretty often, is my experience. Is that correct, or do you have a different opinion on that?
If you go on the popular blogs, that's true. If you go on different blogs, there's a lot of different alliances that you don't really see, but they still have like a thriving and big community, which is kind of surprising to me as well, even being that long on Ship 3.
So while we're on the topic of alliances, how is your alliance? How is your ranking right now?
The ranking of our alliance is rank 12. I would say our alliance is also a very casual alliance. That's also like the thing that I was talking about earlier. I'm a very hardcore player, and I do sometimes play with my alliance people, but I more interact with them socially. And if someone is there that wants to like do some more hardcore stuff, then I do sometimes hardcore stuff with them. But yeah, basically everyone just has fun there, doing their own stuff, doing UQs and doing the alliance task now a little bit with each other. So yeah, it's very casual.
You know, you mentioned a lot of hardcore content or hardcore stuff. So what do you mean by that? What is considered hardcore in NGS?
All right, I don't think there's any hardcore content per se, because about stuff that I want to get later into it more. It's more about being hardcore. So instead of clearing purpose in 18 to 20 minutes, you clear purpose in 12 minutes. Or instead of doing dark voice every 4 or 5 runs, you clear dark voice every run, or every, like, you maybe fail once or twice in like 10 runs. That's what I mean with more hardcore.
And then, so what is your favorite content in NGS? What's the content that you just enjoy running over and over and over?
Well, I do enjoy fighting bosses in pretty much every game, so that's why I also think NGS fits very well to me, because I think the boss design in NGS is getting better and better. I also enjoy fashion a lot, which is kind of weird because I was never a fashion guy, but this game kind of got me into fashion. Yeah. Those are the things, basically.
So before we jump into the Waker add-on skills and like a lot of the meat of today's podcast, I do want to ask you about the fashion part and the gameplay loop of NGS. So as we know, as existing veteran players of the game, that the gameplay loop is you do content, you do combat zones, you make money basically, or make meseta, which is the in-game money, and then you use the meseta in order to purchase fashion from the marketplace, as well as, augments and upgrades and gear and all of that stuff. And so what is the gameplay loop for you every day or every month in NGS?
At the moment, since we get a lot of updates, I see the gameplay loop more of a loop as a region or as a level type of thing. So let's say we have Kavaris now. My plan was in Kavaris to get the best gear possible as fast as I can, so I can run purpose as fast as I can with people that are like-minded, so I can get fashion money as fast as I can, basically. So this is how I basically created my loop. Right now, I just do what is trending. So you always see people, for example, when Blizzarium came out, people were farming Blizzarium. After people were done with Blizzarium, people farmed Ancients. And I try to be like one step ahead. So when people were at Ancients, I try to be finished with Ancients already and have the purple grind ready again. So a few days earlier, I have already armors and weapons and other stuff that was not farmed a lot ready to sell before the price drops for the content again. This is how I played basically. Yeah.
So by staying ahead of the market, what advantage does that bring you?
That I have more meseta. This is the only advantage. And what also advantage is, well, that's the thing about chip tree. Since we are just a mid-populated chip, being a little bit behind, that can also mean that some farms are harder to get, especially like Blizzarium. Blizzarium was kinda over after 1 or 2 weeks. So everyone that started Blizzarium later had problems getting Blizzarium. As well as this, everyone who started later had then problems doing Ancients. And so on. Which is kind of a problem that I hope will resolve when the PS4 players come and our server will be more populated. So that might be not a thing in the future.
That's interesting that you say that, because from my personal experience on Ship 3, I feel like, yes, there's less players doing the content, right, that everyone's already completed. Blizzardium for sure, that definitely, I felt that because I didn't want to farm Blizzardium anymore, because I just go through Resto Shop, I buy my 20 Blizzardium, and that's it, I don't do anything else every single week for extra Blizzardium. But for the ancient farming, for example, from my experience, I feel like there's always one room farming for ancients, but if you can't get into that room, then you're screwed. That's how I felt. But, the room is 32 slots, right? So you have a good chance that after they kill an ancient that you can probably get in, but you're gonna have to sit there and wait for the 10-15 minutes until the ancient respawns again to get your kills, and then you basically just camp the room. That is my experience. But, I remember on the first day when ancients came out, you guys had a system where it was like, oh, people would AFK in separate rooms, and that way you would just back to back to back be killing ancients over and over and over and be very, very efficient. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, we have basically one person that just didn't want to farm and watches anime, and that always just made a new room. And we did this also a week ago, when we had people that had to complete the Kaiser weapons. So, but this is also a little bit based on how many people really want to do it. So last week, for example, when the event was still going, we had problems putting up Asian farms because people actually wanted to farm other stuff. What we did was we got like 10-15 people together who wanted to do the Ancient, and had one person who was in the next room already waiting to open it up. We also have people, we don't mind if someone is in the next room standing AFK on the Ancient and basically leeching the Ancient, right? Nobody's gonna report this person because this person made basically happen that we can do one Ancient after another. So this is basically what happened.
And the reason why this works so well was because you're in a closed off environment, right? Like all of this was everyone sort of knows each other, at least you're on the same Discord, everything's very organized, and that's why it works, right? It wasn't like in a public group where there's like 10 people coming in and they're just all leeching, right? Is that the case?
It's more mouth to mouth as well. So when we had our Discord, we probably get like for Asian Farm 10 people together, and those 10 people then went to blogs and told other people, and their people told their alliances. And since there's like a couple of big alliances there, it happens that everyone, like nearly every player, knows what's happening, and then the room fills up pretty fast. This is basically how also my stream got pushed up, because the Blizzarium farm was the same thing. I invited like 40 persons that I know from just casually talking to them, and they invited their alliances, and then we had suddenly a big group out of people that were all farming together. So yeah, it's a lot mouth to mouth as well. When people hear, okay, there's some farm, all right, the next person tells the next person, and so on and so forward.
I definitely think that Ship 3 has the advantage of having the most social content creators / streamers. So you've got yourself, of course, you have Skulls Nightshade, you have Criticaster, you have Alex West, and you've got the Bedtime Stories as well. You have a lot of very charismatic streamers that like to organize social activities. And this is definitely going to be one of your bigger advantages when people are trying to pick a ship. I feel like they're going to turn on Twitch or YouTube or whatever, and they're just going to look at, oh, where does my favorite YouTuber, where does my favorite streamer play on? And that's going to determine what ship they're going to pick. And I feel like that is the #1 advantage that you guys have on Ship 3 is, hey, listen, you know, we've got all of these people always creating community events for them, you know, for the PlayStation players. Do you need Blizzardium? We got Blizzardium Farm. Do you need Ancient Kills? We've got Ancient Farm. Do you need, you know, just PSE bursting in general or mastery farming? We've got that as well. And that is something that I feel that Ship 3 definitely has an advantage over all the other ships. Just the sheer amount of content creators willing to put the work, willing to organize all of these different activities. What is your take?
I have to say to that, of course I have the farming Discord and all that, but for example, Skulls Nightshade also always comes to me with ideas about what we could farm. Skulls also farms herself on her streams too. She does like other farms that we do, which is also pretty nice. But she doesn't organize like big stuff. But what Skulls, for example, does, she has like the ability to put a lot of people together and bring a lot of people together, which is also pretty nice. Also, one thing to add, what a lot of people don't know of, we have a very big community that's called the Cafe Ship. They don't have any streamers whatsoever, but those are active since base PSO, and they make every 2 weeks social events with in quote-unquote professional photographers as well. So we not only have the streamers, but we have also in-game alliances who create social events, which is also pretty nice and a pretty big plus as well.
It's nice that you mentioned about screenshots, because in last week's episode with Chrono Catastrophe and Skulls Nightshade, they told me that Ship 3 is the screenshot ship. Could you tell me more about this, because I have not experienced this yet on Ship 3?
Oh yeah, because it's more of a thing in basically the cafe ship community. So the cafe ship community made big events where we then did a lot of big group photos as well. And we have like, I think 4 or 5 people that spend most of the time just doing screenshots and using other programs to edit them. So as well, I have for myself, for my Twitter, someone that does also screenshots for our events, which is pretty nice. And yeah, a lot of people just gather around and do screenshots together randomly. Like they talk to each other in the lobby, and then all of a sudden they make like a Sonic screenshot collaboration where someone is Sonic, the other one is Amy, and because there's a lot of people who does cosplay as well. Yeah, it's pretty fun. So that's also really surprising to me after a while, if you get into the community a little bit more.
I personally find the whole cosplay community and the screenshot community super fascinating. The reason for this is because I'm not part of this community, because I personally, when I play NGS or play PSO2, I'm all about the combat. I'm all about the content. I go in, I kill things, I farm for loot, I upgrade my gear, and that is the gameplay loop for me personally. It's just constantly killing stuff, making money, upgrading my gear. And that's most of the content. That's 90% of the content that I do. And so by seeing a different perspective of how people are like, oh, my end game is to get all of these different fashion pieces, to cosplay, to get these screenshots, to get other people to cosplay other characters, and, you know, get together and do collaborations and stuff. Like, this is super cool for me, because it's like, wow, I didn't even think from that perspective. I didn't even think that was content. And being able to see from a different perspective, see what other people's end games are, I find that super fascinating. And I definitely want to spend a lot more time on Ship 3 to look into this, look into the cafe, these screenshot events, all of these things. Because actually, I think a couple months back, we hosted a big fashion show event where we invited all 4 ships onto the base PSO2 into the PvP zone, because that is the only way where you can basically have cross ship. It's called the universal ship, and that way everyone could share off their different fashion. And I must say, I was extremely impressed with like a lot of fashion from ship 1, ship 3, well, basically all the ships, to be honest. But it was just very foreign to me to see that, yo, you know, PSO2 is not all about killing, or combat and fighting. It's about, you know, there's a lot more to that. So I am very happy that you mentioned about the whole cosplaying and photo shoot stuff.
There's a little bit of a backstory to it as well for me. So that's how I kind of got hooked to the game. I started first with real life friends, and none of them played anymore after like a month or so. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna search for an alliance. Then I joined an alliance, and I just had only one outfit, and my intention was to keep this one outfit and just invest everything else into gear. And then someone just came along and invited me to the alliance, and then they gifted me some stuff from base PSO, so I have more costumes. And they were basically more focused on just doing screenshots events and casino events and all that kind of stuff. And that got me then hooked to the community, because there were eventually a lot of nice people that I met. So yeah, the whole screenshot community thing got me actually hooked to the game, which is kind of funny if you think about it, that I'm actually more of a hardcore player in games.
Actually, since you mentioned about the base game, so base PSO2, I remember hearing you on stream saying, you know, you're not really super keen to try the base game. And is there a reason why you don't really want to try the base game versus just playing NGS?
So I played till level 64 or so, the base game, with some people who carried me. And I think this is one of the reasons I don't enjoy it as much, because I saw a lot of awesome stuff which just got annihilated by getting one-shotted. But also the game feels the base game feels more clunky, and it's also, for me personally, it's kind of a weird feeling if you go into something and everyone knows everything already, right? There's nothing new to discover. There's nothing like mysterious about it. You go somewhere, you have the information for it, and that's it basically. And I'm a player who likes to find out new stuff and like enjoy new stuff that's coming out. That's why I enjoy also NGS so much, because we have every content update, new stuff that we can discover and like talk about and so on.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that is a very fair assessment. However, we do have a lot of campaigns that are currently going on for the base game. So will you be doing any of those campaigns? For example, there's at least the casino event where, you know, you need to earn 10,000 casino coins. Are you going to be doing any of those campaigns or not?
So we actually talked with our community about that. We started doing challenge mode runs. For the people who don't know what challenge mode is a run where you go in with where you can go in with level 0, and the further you come, or like there's different modes, and the further you come you get more SG, and we're trying to get people to do that. And after that, after like we did the hard work, we want to chill together in the casino and do more of a social event, and where people can talk to each other and chill out and earn some coins as well. So it's definitely something that I enjoy too, and I hope they will also introduce something like that in NGS, since it's content where everyone can just chill out, everyone can just sit down, and it's content that you don't have to be good to enjoy the content, right? You can just be there and play a little bit of blackjack or play a little bit of roulette or whatever, right? It's nothing that will make or break you, basically.
I 100% agree. I recently was messing around in the casino again because now I have the casino coins. So now I can play on Ship 4, I can play with Spook and his community whenever they do their casino night. And I feel like that's kind of cool how communities will host casino nights. Where it's just like, oh yeah, everyone on Ship 4, you know, you're all welcome. We're all just gonna be chilling from, you know, on this day from this time to that time, and everyone's welcome. And it's just really nice to see a community just band together and just like mess around. Because as you said, you know, the casino isn't anything very crazy. It's, you know, it's very simple, right? You just go there, there's a lot of luck involved, but you don't need to be very skillful about anything. Everyone can just go in and have a good time. And that's the amazing thing about it. It's not, you know, not super hardcore. It's just fun. You know, you just have a social event basically.
And you don't have to do anything for it, right? So you don't have to have like pre-knowledge for the base game, or you don't have to have like a level 50 character or level 65 character where you have to join a certain raid to farm a setter or something like that. No, you do like the first, I think, 3 or 4 quests, which take like 5 minutes. You get some coins for free. Right now with the events, you get some coins for free anyway. So it's pretty nice, yeah.
So, you know, I want to drag the conversation back into NGS, into more recent news. And that is, of course, the Waker class has been released now for about a week. So what are your initial thoughts about this class?
I'm surprised out of those reasons that I first thought they gonna do the class more simple. But if you want to go in depth into the class, it's actually kind of hard to play if you want to optimize it. But you can also grab it up if you are not a hardcore player and still have your fun with it. And that's what kind of surprises me, that the class is actually very well made for every type of player. For me personally, I don't enjoy the playstyle too much. But I see a lot of people that were just waiting for that kind of playstyle, for the fast pace, going in, going out, using the different kinds of familiar that you can summon, and having like the JoJo Adventures feeling, where you have your own basically ghost behind you that fights for you. So yeah, I see that it's fun for people, and I hope it let me hope that Gunblade will also be very interesting, and as well as other future classes.
If you were to rank Waker versus all of the other classes, what rank would you say that it is? Do you think it's like, you know, on the same level as Braver, or maybe same level as your Gunner, or like, how do you feel about the class in general? Do you think it has everything that it needs already, or do you think it's missing something like what the Gunner's missing?
I think it's missing something. Can't really tell you what it is, because I haven't played the class enough, but what I can say to the class as in ranking wise, I think that's definitely a class that shines in content where you have a massive amount of enemies to kill. So I think, for example, for stuff like Mining Rig, this class will shine high, as well as for Trions, where you have to clear a massive amount of enemies, since every attack that you do is an AoE attack. And I would not, I cannot say it's like an S tier or B tier or whatsoever, because I think some classes are just better in other sectors like AoE or single target than other classes. So I think AoE wise it's an S tier. Single target wise I cannot tell, because I haven't tested the class with a Kaiser weapon.
Okay, I think that's a fair assessment. So I want to ask you, have you tried using Waker as a subclass? And if you have, how do you feel about the skill tree?
I have tried it a little bit as a subclass. I cannot really tell if you can compare it to, for example, like Hunter, since it's more defensive. I also don't know how the interactions are with, for example, Catcher or Foe, where you have the AoE resignia, and if like the AoE resignia that you create will also create an overtime healing for your allies. So I have not looked too deep into it, so I cannot say too much about it. I would have to do more testing.
Yeah, no problem. So I want to move on to the next subject, and that is of course our add-on skills. So I'm sure you've had a lot of time to mess around with the add-on skills, and what's your first impression so far?
I like that they introduced it. I think there should be more ways to get cubes with different classes, and not only by overleveling. For example, something like a challenge mode would be nice, where you can go in with every class that's already max level, and you have to do different stuff, like something like Cocoon, but you get like a preset of skills from a class or something like that, and through that you can earn some cubes extra. That would be nice. In terms of power, I think the add-on skills give a lot of power, and in terms of, well, that's the thing. I think it's a little bit too random and a little bit too tedious to get the cubes and to get like high rankings in those add-on skills. But I think either way, like, they should make it easier to get to higher ranks, or they should give you like better options to get more cubes.
I definitely agree on the cube thing. Like, getting cubes is kind of annoying, especially for a player like myself and you, of course, where we like to hyper focus on one class. We're one-trick ponies, and if you have to level up another class or you need to over level another class, it's very time consuming. Because like for me, I only had the Braver and the Force at level 60. All of my other classes were still level 20 at the time, and so I had to level everything up. And I just decided, you know what, I'm just gonna level all my classes to level 30, so that through the title system I get one class X cube. However, the problem with that is I can only roll one time on every single class, and I was just like, you know what, it doesn't matter, I get the level 10 version of whatever stat it gives, and I'm just gonna deal with it. But I think with the upcoming Cannonball event, I heard, I don't know, can't confirm it, that you can also get class X cubes from that. And so if we can get class X cubes by just running that with our main class, and you just get random class X cubes, I think that is another way to sort of alleviate the problem of like, oh man, Sega wants me to level every class. You know, it's a lot of work to do that. So that's my take on things, at least.
I also have to say something about that. I think it's also a little bit how they release the stuff now. So we're getting the MK Kaiser weapons. I think what the add-on skills also did for me was that that it made me test out other classes and weapons as well. Are more in depth, because I want to get NX cubes, but I don't want to farm yellows. What I do is farm purples. So I have to learn like other classes, like Braver, for example, I played a lot, or Ranger in purpose. And the problem right now is we don't have a option to get good weapons outside from having to farm Blizzarium like crazy. And it will be more resolved with the MK weapons. So I guess if you have it more available, that you have like a little bit of a less potency weapon for it ready to test another class, that would also help it that it's less tedious and less boring to get the add-on skills as well.
So the way that I see Sega's game design, and you know, I want your thoughts on it as well. I think Sega designs things to be very difficult, very grindy in the beginning. So a great example is, you know, let's use Blizzardium for an example. When Blizzardium first came out, it was like, oh my gosh, you know, we have to gold box farm, we have to do all of this. And then they added in Resto Shop, and it was like, oh wow, we can get 20 every single week. I feel like with the whole add-on skills, with the whole RNG and all of that, I feel like they're gonna do it the way it is right now. And this is done on purpose, to give people who are hardcore grinders and just a hardcore player base, it's like, here's something to do. And after everyone or the hardcore players like max out everything and they're like all at plus 20, then they're just re-rolling for substats, then I feel like Sega's going to introduce another system to come in where it's just like, oh yeah, now instead of just, you know, the level 1, 2, and 3, we're going to add in a level 4 where it's like guaranteed level 15 main stat and, I don't know, level 15 substats, for example. And then they're just going to make it easier and easier over time so that the casual players are still able to keep up. Because the big problem that I see in most MMOs is the power gap between hardcore players and casual players. And PSO2 has done a very good job in keeping things kind of even. So it's like the casual players are still going to be able to do all of the content in the game just by playing casually every day, like, you know, 30 minutes. Versus the hardcore players, which, you know, you play a lot because you love playing the game, you enjoy the game, but on top of that, you want to feel rewarded for playing the game, right? And so you get all this gear, you get all of this stuff, and you're able to blast through everything, but you can still play with your casual friends and do the same thing, because your casual friends are still able to deal enough damage, they're able to still survive these hits and do all the different content with you. Sure, they're not going to be as efficient as you, but they can still do it. And I think the balancing act between the casual players and the hardcore players and the content is done pretty well in NGS. But I want to hear you. What's your take?
Yeah, I would call it the casual hardcore style, what they're doing. So basically, as a hard grinder, you can get at a point where you can do stuff casually because you overpower everything so much. Since we don't have content right now that is so difficult, you could call Dark Falls that way, but if you're like really deep into the game, you can clear Dark Falls with the add-on skills right now in 8 minutes with a good team who has just like the best units in the game and the best augments without worrying too much that you die too often. So that's also the reason why I think it's not a problem for a casual player to get into it after a while. But yeah, I agree completely on it, that they making the system so casuals can keep up with it later on. But there's one problem with it. Since they're releasing updates pretty frequently, A lot of players feel that their meseta is wasted by upgrading their equipment later on. So getting the MK weapons is I think a right step that Sega does, since you can get the weapons just by playing the game instead of grinding the game and spending meseta for a good weapon.
I fully agree with what you're saying there. I feel like the game should allow more ways to reward people to play the game and they get account bound items. So not tradable. Because the thing about tradable items is people are gonna think, oh, this is sellable, I can sell this on the market for meseta. And immediately people have a different point of view. Instead of just being like, oh, this is a great weapon for a starter kit. Everyone's just like, oh, I'm gonna farm a lot of these, put this on the market, sell it for a lot of money. And it's just a different perspective. And I think the way that Sega should approach things is, listen, we know that you want to play a lot of NGS and you're looking for content and things to do. So here you go. We're going to offer you a type of content that you can do where you can earn this currency in order to work towards XYZ gear. And that way people aren't wasting their meseta on gear that might be outdated in a month or two. Because they're saving their meseta, they're earning these account-bound weapons, and then with the extra meseta that they make or that they save, they can buy their fashion pieces or buy whatever that they actually want to use instead. So I definitely think Sega is, a step in the right direction. There's definitely a good change, but, we also need a piece of gear that is also tradable, because the economy of the game is important. You need to keep things fresh, you need to keep things constantly chasing for something new, something better. And so with the mining rig defense coming in at the end of the month, and they said that rugged weapons are going to drop more often there. So let's say Sega goes crazy and rugged weapons drop like one every 2 to 3 runs of mining base. How do you feel the economy would be in NGS? Like, what would happen?
So I feel right now rugged weapons are the prestige weapons for the hardcore players, and they're basically giving you a chance to test those weapons out before the new content comes. And I don't think that it will affect the economy too much, since I look often about in the market on rugged weapons, and there's a lot of weapons that just sit in it for 200 million or 150 million and nobody wants to buy it because it actually doesn't make sense to buy it. Like the benefit of getting a weapon like that is just not good enough. And even the most difficult stuff like doing purpose solo you can do with Kaiser weapons as well. You don't need a rugged weapon. And most of the time, if you want a rugged weapon, you want a multi-weapon. So you're standing there having to spend 40 million, and who has 40 million in the game? Like, nobody really has that kind of money. So I think the rugged weapons will be like I think there will be more like relic weapons, how they were introduced in Dark Force. So that I think that that you maybe get one, but it's not a certainty that you get one. But then again, the power creep is different than it was to read them. So and a lot of people will have the MK weapons already. That's why I think the rugged weapon, if they really drop like you said, will be actually pretty cheap, and not a lot of players will actually use them.
I'm actually in the same boat as what you said. It's not justified. If you wanted to make a multi-weapon and you need to spend 400 million to just get your 2 weapons, and then you need to spend money to get the augments for that weapon, like, it doesn't make sense right now, especially with the current state of like, I want to say like the average player maybe has like, 3 million, 5 million, 10 million. Like, people aren't swimming in hundreds of millions of meseta, at least the average player. And so I don't think it would make much sense for people to spend that much money on a rugged weapon, which is just a little bit better than the Kaiser weapon. And as you said, you know, with the Kaiser weapon, which is account bound, you can't trade it. Like, that weapon works perfectly fine with all of the hardest content, right? You want to solo purples, you want to do dark falls, you want to do whatever, you can do it all with a Kaiser weapon and you'll be perfectly fine. And so regarding if they drop like candy from the mining rig defense, Kavaris, I think if it does, it's not going to affect the economy that much, because people are going to be like, listen, I already completed my Kaiser weapon. I made a Kaiser multi-weapon or whatever. I spent 1 month, 2 months trying to work towards this weapon. I don't want to do that again. And it's just like, yeah, I don't want to spend the money. I don't want to do anything. I'm happy with my Kaiser weapon. I don't need the rugged weapon. And so even if they become a very common item, I don't think people are gonna go crazy over it and spend, hundreds of millions on buying these rugged weapons. And on the other hand, I actually think it's gonna help players, because for the players who, as you said earlier in the podcast, can't find a group to farm for Ancients, can't find a group to farm for Blizzardium, it's like, hey, listen, if you don't want to farm for your Kaiser weapon, here's another option, the rugged weapons. Sure, they might be, a little bit more expensive. Maybe they'll be like 5 million or 10 million or something, but it's another option, right? It's another alternative. And eventually the market will get lower and lower as people are looking towards the volcano region or looking towards 8 stars. And then people are going to be like, oh yeah, the ruggeds are useless now because they're the 7 stars, they're the old gear. And this is a trend that we have seen over and over and over again. When we started in Alio with 4-star, into Ratem with the 5 stars, and then into Kavaris with the 6 and 7 stars. Like, it's a very common trend that all of our old gear we sell off for very, very cheap to, people that want it. And I think this is kind of just the gear progression of the game. So I'm pretty happy with that. But is there anything else that you wanted to add on to that before we move on to the next subject?
Yes, as well as that it only takes 1 month till the next level increase, and they might add new weapons, like we don't know that. I also want to say to the players that might fear to upgrade their units, if they keep it like it is right now, I still see a lot of people running around with, for example, a Schwarzguard armor. Just because the augments is actually what gives you the power in the game. So if you have an armor with good augments, this armor you can probably keep to the next region easily and probably even clear all the content in the next region. So for the players who might fear that their gear will be outdated, it will probably not, because the augments will be still pretty good for what they are. They may be introduced higher augments soon, we don't know that, but even then it will be just a few percent potency off and your units will be still extremely good. And that's what I'm hoping for and I'm building on. So I don't think I will have to change my Bay Green armor to the next region, or even I don't even think I have to change my armor in the next region at all and can even go further beyond.
I definitely think the way that the game is designed is as the podcast I did with Alex West, I still think that the game is 70% skill, 30% gear, right? So as long as you have the skill set and you know how your class works and you can play to a certain degree, the better you can play, the less gear you need, is basically the way that I see things. And so it's, yeah, you're totally right. You don't need the best in slot gear all the time unless you are seeking that efficiency. You want to do things extremely fast. You want to do the hardest content as quickly as possible and stuff like that. If that is what you're seeking and that's what you enjoy to do, then of course chasing the best in slot gear is going to be the thing to do. But if you are a little bit more of a casual player, but you know how to play your class, you know, that is a different way to play. You know, maybe you want to seek mastery of a specific class. You want to be the best gunner out there, or the best braver, or the best whatever. That is definitely another way to approach the game where, you know, you're not as dependent on your gear. You can just get the basic gear, basic augments, and as long as you play the class as to the best of your ability, you will still do a lot of damage and do very well.
I actually have to disagree on that. I think personally, the better you gear you are, the less skill you need. Like, way less skill. I can tell you, if you're in a purple key with a bunch of people that have the best gear available, you can die pretty much way more than you have revives, and you still clear the key, the trigger 4 minutes earlier than the timer. Just because of the sheer power that you get, as well as, and even more with the new add-on skills. So the better you gear are, the less you have to care about dying or other stuff, because you just stomp everything. You're just getting OP as fuck in this game. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I think that's definitely a valid, you know, a valid point of view, right? It's like, listen, I'm not the best player in the game, but I'm just gonna overgear so much that all of the current content will just get pub stomped, because I'm just so powerful and so strong that nothing can kill me, and I can deal so much damage that even if I play like total garbage, I'm still able to destroy all of the bosses. So yeah, I definitely think that your point of view is valid, it works. However, for me personally, I always try to seek, you know, try to always improve in my craft. And so as a player, you just got to decide, you know, what do you enjoy when you play NGS? Are you the type of player that always seeks improvement? Are you the player that just wants to play it casually, and so you just want to overgear so much so you can just enjoy the content and be very, very casual and very chill? And yeah, it just depends on your personal play style. However, we are running out of time, so I need to move on to the next subject. And the next question is, of course, with the new changes on the capsule exchange system, it pretty much killed off deftness farming. So I know Fresh, that you do a lot of deftness farming on your stream. And it's one of the main attractions on, you know, in the early days at least, it was one of the main attractions on what helped you blow up your channel on Twitch. So with deftness farming suddenly becoming dead content now, how has this affected your Twitch stream as well as your approach to the game?
It doesn't really affect my Twitch stream, because I'm doing basically Deft Farm, or did a farming event every Sunday, and we're still doing it. I have as a co-host School's Nightshade always on, and it's more of a get together and talking to each other and like having fun together. And what kind of content we do in there doesn't really matter. Although what I have to say to that in general, it kinda makes it harder to get a whole ship together to do something, since there's not much else except Asians that you do in a big room. So I think it would drive the community a little bit more apart. And I think that Sega should introduce some other content that you can enjoy with more people as well, instead of just having Asians. No.
Okay. You know, I'm gonna give you a difficult question. So if you were part of the development team, you were the CEO, you can make whatever content you want instantaneously. What do you think NGS needs right now? What would you add? Like, what specifics would you add right now in order to, you know, alleviate the problem that you just said? You know, we need content, right? What content would you like to see?
This is a difficult question, because I think they have good content that we can do already, but the way they released the content and implemented the content, as well as the Kaiser weapons with the augments and the red boxes, that we get armors with already decoyed augments in the red boxes, kind of defeated the purpose to even farm decoyed augments as a whole. As well as there's nothing else to do in Gorge itself to to even have that gear, because the moment that you have your Kaiser weapon, you will never go back there again. So I think they actually have content that could provide that, but they released it in a very weird way that it doesn't work, if you know what I mean. So I think they should rather put their resources more into how they want to make their progression system and when and how they want to release stuff in the game.
Okay. Yeah, I understand your point of view, but again, I want to give you that difficult question of, if you can make anything happen, you can add anything into the game, you can change anything anything in the game, what would you do to make the game more fun and more enjoyable?
A different type of UQ, something like Dark Forest 2, but with more people, with more difficulty spikes like we had in the seasonal event, the time limited quest, where you have like 5 ranking at once, and just like a difficult boss fight that you have 5 rankings with, and where you can get augments in gear depending on the ranking what you do. I think that would help a lot to get a lot of people together and make the game more interesting.
Okay, fair enough. So, you know, a lot of people who watch my podcast know that I have crazy ideas, and so here's my crazy idea that I want you to consider. So imagine the Gorge area. It's a 32-man exploration zone. We change that up. We make it into a 32-man combat zone. You can farm up PSE bursts, all of that. However, whenever you hit a PSE burst, instead of spawning a regular boss enemy at the end, it spawns an urgent quest boss. It has the HP bar, it has everything, and you gotta deal with it. But on top of that, to add difficulty, because you know you've got 32 players, that boss itself also has mini bosses, just like the regular boss after a PSE burst. So for example, let's say Crocodilus spawns. So you got to deal with Crocodilus, and he spawns his little, his little gang of mini Crocodiluses as well. So you've got to deal with like 4 Crocodilus at the same time, but you've got 32 people. And, so that's my crazy idea of, okay, there's this crazy content. All of these mobs are level 64, so they're higher level than you. You need the decold stat in order to farm there, because you'll take cold damage if you don't. But as for the loot, maybe they add in the new 8-star armor there. They add in rugged weapons as, fairly common drops there. They add in some stat 4 capsules. So, Might 4, Dreadkeeper 4, whatever 4. They add in all of those. The new loot is all added in there. And then on top of that, whenever the Ancient spawns, you guys can go over and kill the Ancient, and the Ancient's like guaranteed to drop Blizzardium, for example. It drops Blizzardium, it drops everything that you need for your Kaiser weapon, and it's a guaranteed drop every single time you kill it. So that is my crazy idea. It's very out there for sure, but I'm sure my audience already knows that I do some crazy ideas. But I think that would be something to entice people and be like, okay, there is an endgame zone to farm. It's gonna be the Gorge. Once you're done with everything, you have your endgame augments, affixes, gear, whatever. The next step, the next endgame place to farm for the best of the best stuff is gonna be in the Gorge area. Because I think the Gorge is such a missed opportunity. There's so much potential in that area that they could definitely take advantage of. So, what are your thoughts about my insane idea?
It sounds really good. I also think your idea could fit very well in the exploration zones in general. For example, you say you have a lot of people in an exploration zone, and because you have a lot of people who clear a lot of tries in a quick suggestion, the veterans would turn into mega veterans, for example, and would have like a higher chance to drop stuff, and would also spawn extra bosses to it. So I think your idea is pretty nice, and I think that could be also something that could be implemented in other regions as well to make it more interesting and to fill up those exploration zones with players. I don't know how is it on ship 1 or 2, but on ship 3 you mostly have like 7, 10, maybe 18 players in one exploration zone. So I think that would also definitely help out to like make it that people go outside more and farm more as well. So I think your idea is pretty good. I fear though a little bit that exclusive groups that ask people for certain gear might, or for certain coordination, might can lead to more toxicity or to more enclosed farming groups, and that casuals might don't have the chance to farm really in those regions.
I totally get your concerns. I think that is a problem that I guess the community kind of needs to overcome, as well as maybe some sort of game design mechanic, I guess. But yeah, I think no matter what you do, there is always going to be that kind of balance, right? Between, oh, the hardcore players, they care about is efficiency. They want to find the fastest way to farm for all the gear or all the loot or whatever they want in order to make the most amount of meseta. As you said earlier, you know, as you're a hardcore player, you really like to be ahead of the game, right? Because that's how you make the most amount of meseta. And I feel like this is definitely a common trend, and it's all about balance. You know, the game itself, the design, the community, everything needs to have a fine sense of balance, where it's like, yes, the hardcore players can get ahead, they can make their meseta, but it's not to an extreme that all of the casual players are totally screwed, right? You can't have only, you know, 1% of the ship or the server is ultra rich and everyone else is ultra poor. Then there's a problem. But if, you know, people are a little bit richer than everyone else because they put in the time and the effort, that's perfectly fine. You know, it's all about balance, is my opinion.
And one more thing that I would really like to implement into the game is, if I could make it happen instantly, is multi-ship playability, that you can do triggers and other stuff with other ships together. Like, this would be like my main thing that I really wanted. I think that would make every ship considerably better, and it would not matter too much if you're like on a less populated ship or not.
So I need to ask you, so regarding, let's say they do make a universal ship, right? So how would you implement it? Do you think it should only work for like purple triggers, yellow triggers, dark falls, like the stuff that you queue in and then you go into like a separate room? Or do you think it should just, like, you just switch to a universal ship and like it's basically the same copy as like your ship 3, but it's just everyone can play on that ship together? What system would you use?
I think that server identity is something important. I have the experience from other MMOs where they removed server identity. For example, World of Warcraft, where they made like that you get phased into like server groups with different players, but then you don't have the feeling of the enclosed community anymore, and like the feeling you belong to the ship, and everyone and everything feels kind of distant. So I think the best way would be if we could create groups and communities over different ships. Like, for example, like a multi-ship community group chat, not necessarily an alliance, and that you can do triggers together, cocoons, and all that kind of stuff. That would be my take on it.
I get it. I think that would be a good idea. I definitely think universal ship or like cross ship content should be a thing, because there's been so many times where I'm like, man, I want to play with XYZ player, but they're on a different ship, or like maybe my main character or my powerful character is not on the same ship as them, and it just really sucks to have to go to another ship, sacrifice a lot of progress on my main character just in order to gear up an ult so that I can play with other players. And even after that sacrifice, I know that the ult character is not as strong as what it should be, right? So there's plenty of times, especially like when I was playing on ship 1, where it's like, oh man, you know, I'm doing Darkfall's rank 1 or I'm doing whatever content, but I only have a Griaga weapon and I don't even have a Sanquian weapon yet. And it's just like, man, I know I'm kind of holding the team back, and it really sucks because I'm not that type of player. The type of player that I am is I always want to be the hard carry, or at the very least, I want to be able to pull my own weight. If I can't pull my own weight, I'm like, man, I'm just dead weight here. You know, I don't feel like I'm contributing to the fight, and that's not the type of player I am. I always want to be able to, at the bare minimum, pull my own weight, right? And yeah, so it definitely feels really bad for me when I'm gearing up other characters on other ships and I don't have a Kaiser weapon yet. I'm just like, oh man, you know, I'm pulling the team down. I'm holding them back is how I see things. And yeah, I definitely would like a cross ship or universal ship type of thing where I could just play with everyone on my main character, on my powerful character. It would definitely feel much, much better. But we are running out of time over here, so I need to wrap things up. So we're gonna pass the floor over to Fresh. You know, Fresh, do you have any shout outs, socials? Where can people find you? All of that stuff. The floor is yours.
First of all, I want to shout out Squeeze Nightshade, because she's probably the person who helped me the most with all what's happening in the last in the past 2 months. I want to shout out my community. I have a Ship Tree farming community Discord as well. You can see me there. You can see me on Twitch. Fresh Dynamite, Fresh_Dynamite is my name. And yeah, I want to shout out as well Nonpon. I want to shout out Phantom Yosha. I want to shout out Drift. I want to shout out pretty much everyone that's out there. I want to shout out Keroppi. I know it's kind of weird since I'm with him here, but yeah, I also want to shout out like smaller streamers like Captain Radix or Xiaomi Gaming or Rolem or Nightcat. Like, we have so many people that support each other in general, and I think it's not only the ship. I think it's like everyone in the PSO community in a whole, because everyone wants to see the game grow. And sorry for everyone that I didn't shout out, because I cannot shout out everyone. And also shout out to Matoy and Yuka, who helps me a lot. They're on my ship. And shout out to Eileen as well. And yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
I hope I didn't forget anyone. I'm sorry if I did. Like this is the part that I worried the most, that I forget people or anything. But so yeah, thank you all so much, and yeah, thank you Keroppi for having me. Was a nice time talking to you.
Perfect.
And yeah.
Oh, there's still more? Okay, what's up?
Yes, give me headpads. Like, if you come on my stream, you have to give me headpads. That's like very important.
All right, perfect.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Fresh. Special thanks to all the members for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. Thank you again. And that concludes this week's episode of Arks Trash. Let me know in the comment section below who you would like to see in the next episode of Arks Trash, and if it's possible, I might make it happen. But anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed the podcast. If you did, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye!
Can I say except you're welcome?